one you can see us, so you don't miss anything. That would be good. Before we start, I want to read these verses from God's Word. It relates to what we're going to hear. And God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat." And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. God is the great giver. He gives it. That's his nature, is to give. And I just give you something to ponder real quick. What if God had created Adam on the first day? He wouldn't be able to exist for more than 5 to 10 seconds. God knows that, so he created everything Adam needed ahead of time so that he would have everything he needs. That's the God I serve, and that's the God that we represent here at our little ministry. So I'm going to ask one of our elders, Rob Herf, who everybody knows, to come and introduce our speaker, and I hope you have an informative night, fellowship, and I'll come back at the end and tell you some more announcements, okay? Rob? Right here. Oh, there you are. You look good.
Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate you all coming out tonight. And I just wanted to introduce Eric. I met Eric last September. I went down to Polyface to take a broiler seminar. They taught you everything from beginning to end on raising chickens. And this guy really impressed me. It's just his passion, his ability to communicate. And so I got thinking about it. We ought to just have him come and share their story. I will tell you this. The pictures, and there's some people here that have been to Polyface. The pictures don't do justice to this farm. This is an amazing place. It is an amazing place. It just abounds with life. The food there is amazing. The food is, you eat there, the food is amazing. But I give you Eric Warlock.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you all. Excited to be here. Had a great drive up. And just want to introduce a little bit more about myself. Eric Barth, as Rob said. Coming from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, working for Polyface Farms for the last 7 years. Test 1, 2. Okay. So I've been working at the farm. I'm married. I have my wife Leanna, and we have a 3-year-old son whose name is Nathaniel, aka Roy Rogers. For those of you who would know the old-time Western cowboy movies, we decided to go down that road for some of his visual entertainment instead of the Disney route. So any Oakley and Roy Rogers are his heroes. And then we are blessed with a 6.5-month-old little girl, Susanna, back at the end of April this year. My wife and I met at Polyface. She came this spring after I did. So there's a whole lot more going on than just raising good animals and good food, good plants at the farm. There's been several marriages and families growing out from it. So it's a fun place to be. So what I want to share with you tonight is the story behind Polyface Farms and what we have going there. What Joel Salatin, the owner, and his son Daniel have running. Joel's dad bought the place in 1961, and it was the most eroded, wasted, abused piece of property in the area. They had gullies 16 feet deep running down some of the fields, like corrugated roofing. And that was a place they acquired some almost 60 years ago. And I want to pause before I jump into that and confess to you something that when I hear new information or new ideas, it's really easy for me to find fault or nitpick a new way of looking at something, or a new paradigm, or a new concept. And I think it's kind of wired in our nature to look at the less than ideal, picture. And there's always a, well, it doesn't work here, or we have more moisture, or we have less moisture, it's really hot, really dry, rough, smooth. The nuances of our country and where we all are just varied and vastly different. Whoa, there we go. Now I'll save my voice. And so I want to challenge you all, and encourage you all. Let me set up. So good? To thoroughly enjoy this story and to enjoy the concepts, enjoy the ideas. To do that, I want to encourage you all to kind of shut off that assumption button, shut off the judgment button, and the prejudice button that we all, including myself, can bring to something like this where that's not the way it's been done, or that's not the way I grew up learning how to do it. And so I want to encourage you all with that. So Polyface Farms, Farm of Many Faces, is a farm that seeks to follow the biomimicry that we see in nature. We seek to imitate nature, imitate the way things work, because we have seen a lot of benefit to doing that. The farm is 650 acres and really diverse in its open land, woodland, riparian areas, mostly wooded, about 450 areas of woods, and the three greatest environments that you have are open land, forests, and riparian or water areas. And what we have tried to do is intersect those ecosystems as much as possible, because most species live in two of those three ecosystems, either riparian and forest, or open and riparian, or forest and open. And if we can create as much edge effect by pushing pasture land into forest, or planting trees into pasture land, when we create as much of that as we can, we build up, as biologists would say, the flora and fauna, the animal life and plant life along those edges for greater resiliency and productivity. Just for an example, with the wildlife, wild turkeys, the turkey poults need 30% protein in the diet. So the nesting hens aren't going to nest them in the deep woods, because they're not going to get enough bug life and insects there, because the grasshoppers and bugs live on the edges in the grasses. So creating that edge effect really helps to stimulate the wild turkey population, grouse population, whatever needs those added proteins in that system. So we've got pasture, we've got our forest, and there's some shots from the mountain. We do a lot with our wood, the wood lots. We go in, and Joel loves running the chainsaw. It's one of his favorite tools, and we typically, if you're looking for Joel, you kind of listen here at home with the chainsaw somewhere, if he is on the farm and not speaking and traveling around. But we sell firewood off the farm, and we'll sell firewood. The going rate for firewood in the area is about $50 a pickup load, cut, split, and delivered. $50. And what we have done, instead of going through the labor of cutting it, splitting it, and delivering it for $50, we have found kind of a niche market where, folks just don't want to get out there and run a chainsaw, risk cutting their foot off, but they're happy to get the logs, throw them in the pickup truck, and then split them on the weekend and, save the time of the gym that week. So we will cut the firewood and pile it up in a big pile and sell it for $35 a pickup load. So if you do some of the math, if you take $50, it takes about an hour to cut it, hour to split it, hour to deliver it, roughly. And so if you take off the delivery, the delivery and the splitting, some chainsaw, oil, gas, and we only cut it for an hour, you end up, cutting, if we do it for $35, you do it for an hour. That's why you don't do math in public. I should have learned that. And we take off $10 off of 35, you end up with a return rate of like $25 an hour, $20 an hour, as opposed to splitting $50 into 3 hours, which is like $11.30, $11.50. And so we do clear out the underbrush. Right here in this picture, we're clearing for a pond site, and we'll talk about some of the water stuff a little bit later. And cutting it up, getting it ready to go down the mountain. Now, I don't know if we have any loggers in here, but some people might be looking at this picture and thinking, like, what in the world? Pickup sticks. Like, what are we doing using a front-end loader to saw logs? That is our multiple use equipment. The problem you have when you have a single use piece of machinery is you've got to run that piece of machinery a lot in order to pay for its replacement. You've got depreciation value. Now, I absolutely won't argue that a knuckle boom loader and a skidder are going to be way more efficient and faster at doing what we're doing with saw logs, taking them down the mountain. But because it's multi-use, you look kind of funny driving down the road with a skidder and a hay wagon. When this is not used for hauling saw logs, we can take it down, mow hay with it, scoop chips with it, dump, pull, lift, push, and if we don't want to use it for logs, we can use it for something else. One of the biggest problems with single-use infrastructure, single-use equipment, is that you've got to keep pushing flow through it. You've got to keep pushing the use because you have it. Joel likes to tell us a story about, and it's a hypothetical, but you have a young person, like myself, I'm 30. I still feel like that's young, and I think it's young. But you have some 25-year-old, girl go off and hear some talk like this about sustainable agriculture, and let's say it's commercial dairy. And she goes off and finds that we can graze the cows on pasture, we don't have to fill the silos, they can just harvest it themselves, and then we can dry off the cattle for 3 months of the year and not be milking in December, January, and February. And we can run water along the edges of the fields. She gets all excited about this. And she comes back to the family farm, and the first person she sees is Grandpa coming out of the barn. She's like, Grandpa, I just learned that we can stop filling the silo, and we can sell this hay equipment, and we can put the cows on a pasture, we can run water line, make it run uphill, these black, plastic pipes, and we can stop milking for a couple months. And he's just looking at her, and he's like, what? Your grandmother and I spent our whole life pouring concrete, bending rebar, begging the banker to buy all this fancy hay equipment sitting around here, and you're just gonna walk away from it? Whose girl are you? But sadly, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. Because the single-use infrastructure, we think, makes it so much more efficient and fast that if we encounter another paradigm, we have a hard time changing, because it's there and we bought it, and for goodness sake, we got to keep using it, even if it's not as profitable, or it hurts the ecology, or it goes against the way nature has designed things to work. With the emotional investment in it is just too great. So multiple use equipment is something we focus on a lot. Bandsaw mill. Joel's other toy, loves running. It's pretty amazing, the whole lumber industry. I was listening and learning, I just hadn't realized what a huge value increase that it is from raw lumber, stumpage, to cut lumber. It's like 1,000%. I mean, you can clear off, say you clear off, 10 acres of lumber, get $300 for it. If you just take it down to the sawmill, take it to the lumber yard, you cut it yourself, mill all that lumber up for $3,000. And it's just incredible the value added. And we're totally lumber independent because we can mill our own lumber. You want to put up a tiny house for some on-farm help, you want to put an addition on your garage, you want to put the cow shed up, which we'll look at a little bit. You want to put a shed for equipment, it's right there, you just got to get it on the mill and mill it up. And it's the thing, weighs a couple hundred pounds, and it can be towed behind a Honda Civic. It's really, really amazing. And for $7,000, you're in business. And it doesn't crank out as much as a huge sawmill, but I'd rather play around with $7,000 and see what kind of a business I can make out of it than $50,000 or whatever you would have to invest in if you were going to really make it substantial business. I mean, we can do 1,000 board feet in a day worth $1,000. And it only costs you $7,000 to get into that. So we sell it to the neighbors and kind of custom mill some stuff occasionally, but most of it's for our personal use. And then the tops, so we saw logs at the bottom, firewood further up, and the tops, tree tops, we chip into, we chip up with our chipper. That PTO-driven chipper can take up to 8-inch material, and then those chips, carbon, are what is the backbone, the base for our carbonaceous diaper in the hay shed. So now in the wintertime, when the ground is frozen 12 inches deep, and it's cold outside, and all the microbes and bacteria and worms and organisms are all dormant for the season, we bring the cows in to our hay shed, and they're put on this carbonaceous bedding. Though, as I say, I've never met anyone that could potty train a cow. They're putting out 50 pounds of goodies out their back end, and so we want to capture that because that manure, 50 pounds of material, is highly soluble and volatile. You know, if it gets wet, it leaches out in the groundwater, and if it dries, well, that's what we say when farms stink. We smell that manure, that nitrogen leaching out, coming out in the air. So how do we capture that? Well, we capture it by the deep bedding. So as the cows are in there, the wood chips are spread every couple of days as the manure builds up and urine builds up. We just spread wood chips, and it's really goopy and sloppy. So you put those nice fresh wood chips in there, and it keeps building up the bedding pack. We like to use any source of carbon: wood chips, hay, sawdust, peanut hulls, leaves. Primarily we use a wood chip. We have the right-of-way crews or the power line crews come in doing work every couple of years, and so we have them dumping at the farm. We do, buy in tractor trailer loads of carbon if we can't supply it ourselves. So it's part of our fertilizer expense, as you'll see in a little bit. So we use all kinds of carbonaceous material. This is called our carbon shed, built to house the wood chips to keep them dry. They soak up a lot more moisture when they're dry, and saves us from spreading as much. And we got the feed bunks that the hay is tossed into. So if you're not going to do the Ivomec and drugs and all the things that make the meat so bad that it kills the bugs, you have to have alternatives for a hygienic, healthy environment for the animals. And so we are not only saying no to a lot of the chemicals and herbicides, we have to say yes to a couple of things. So we want to say yes to hygienic conditions. We want to say yes to a healthy environment for those animals to thrive. So we have these feed bunks. They're not eating off the ground, and they raise up on these cables as the bedding builds up, and the bedding can get to be about 3 feet deep, 3 or 4 feet deep. One of the cool things about this carbon system, as we spread the wood chips down every couple of days, we layer in whole corn with a front end loader every 3 layers of wood chips or so. And now when that whole corn goes in and gets covered up, That's probably the only time our cows might be a little corn fed. They sneak a little bit of it through the wood chips, but they don't get it as much as we can help it. So the corn goes down, the chips go on top of it, and those cows are, putting out the manure, trampling down that bedding, and it becomes anaerobic. It's like it starts like a sauerkraut. I mean, it just becomes an anaerobic organism, if you will, and the bedding generates a little bit of heat. I mean, actually, I should say a fair amount of heat. And so when it's zero outside, and that anaerobic bedding is kind of going through its chemical expression, it can be 50 degrees, which is not warm to the touch. But if you're a cow laying on a 50 degree bedding pack rather than 0 or single digits, dirt ground is a whole lot more comfortable for them, and it saves on feed because they're not having to keep their body temperature as high, and it's so nice and almost sweet smelling out there. You could eat dinner out there. It does not smell because all the manure nitrogen is locked in the carbonaceous bedding pack there. So that happens all winter, builds up to 3 or 4 feet, and the cows go out in the spring when the grass starts growing, and we turn in the pig orators. Aerobic. They start churning that bedding up, seeking that fermented corn. And they're pretty excited about this and pretty adamant about what they want in that bedding. And as that bedding gets churned, it starts to heat up. And now with oxygen, decomposition starts happening because that manure is still kind of a volatile material until it decomposes and gets bonds better with the carbon. So the pigs start digging it up. If you look really closely, all those pigs have a little sign that says, "We'll work for corn." Oh, maybe that was in Pickaninny. I'm sorry, I can't see it. But they love doing it. They'll dig down 1 foot, 2 feet deep, looking for that corn, and that's the only feed source that they have. They have water and that corn in there, and digging that up, churning it up. Like, I wish I had a caterpillar guy in here. Like, look at that dirt fly. He really moves the material, and they enjoy doing that. There's some more. Might even see a little kernel there on the left. Talk about getting your head stuck in the sand. They know what we're doing. So you see the steam coming off of that. And all that nutrients is captured and stored all winter long while the ground is dormant. Because we see that manure and material is very valuable. I don't know what your manure looks like, but that's kind of what we see every time the cows are out there doing their business. Just a dollar bill dropping out. And as much as we can capture that, as much as we can keep that on our property, that's what we do, whatever we can to do that. So in the springtime, after the pigs go out and the cows go out, pigs are in there, churning it all up, and you start to see when they get all the corn picked out of it, it is our fertility program. So it gets scooped out of the barn and loaded up in manure spreaders and put out in on the fields. Now, why farming is materials handling. why isn't there large-scale composting, more than there is? And, part of the reason is the expensive infrastructure. And when you're using depreciating infrastructure, you have to push, just like the multiple use equipment, you have to push a lot of material through there. When we use pigs that are appreciating infrastructure, as Joel would say, their retirement program for when they're done is bacon, we suddenly the profit potential is size neutral. We can make just as much money on 2 pigs as we can 1,000 pigs because of the appreciating value. And some might say this, it looks like a lot of work. But if we took all the money put into chemical fertilizers and pesticides and started putting it into a carbon-centered economy and system, it would change the whole ecological picture and provide economic opportunities for young people to have an in if they knew if the fertility kind of program of farms was more centered around carbon instead of the chemicals. We do put in like a mineral in with the compost. Each load of compost as it goes out into the fields. When the animal or the plant life and the bacteria can metabolize it. And back to multi-use. After it's emptied out, we can put chickens in there. We can store equipment in there. We can do whatever we want. There's a few pictures of the pigs broken up into sections. And also notice the use, we talked about the sawmill. This barn is basically pulls the firewood we didn't cut up. It's rough sawn lumber. As much as we like nice stuff, the cows don't care. I don't think they would get cross-eyed looking at a crooked pole. Sorry, Aaron. I came, I like stuff looking nice. I love, dressed lumber but it's amazing what you can do when you free yourself from everything looking perfect. And I think that's a big thing that I personally have learned, working on the farm, is that it can be functional, functional or form. I came from the landscaping industry before I came to the polyface, and so I was more about the form. And it took me some adjusting to get used to the way things were done, but it makes a lot of sense, and I've been learning a lot and very grateful for it. More pictures of pigs. All right, so yeah, while we're on the subject of pigs, what do the pigs do in the summertime? Where do we put them? What do we do with them? So we buy our feeder pigs. We do not farrow or raise our own pigs for a number of reasons, but we buy our piglets, typically 8 to 10 weeks old, from local farmers that we've kind of chosen to purchase from, and they have a breeding program that kind of combines with our needs. So we get the piglets out. Typically they'll be in a barn pen for a couple weeks. And then we put them on pasture when they're 60 to 75 pounds, big enough to kind of ward off coyotes or black bear or whatever. They get pretty protective. If a predator were to go after one of these guys and he starts squealing, you got like everyone on you. So just that deterrent really helps. You gotta go out on the pasture with feed, and Joel has found a sweet spot. How do we, people often wonder, well, how do we know when to move them? How much time is enough, or how much time is too much when you're talking about animals on pasture? And what Joel has found is a sweet spot of roughly a quarter-acre land base to a ton of feed. And that ratio is enough impact and disturbance on the ground to allow for a good regrowth of the perennials and grasses. If you do it too much and they really denude it and just make it a bare mud area, you get weeds growing back. And if you do it too little, not enough impact, not enough disturbance, you get the brambles. So there's that sweet spot that Joel and Daniel have kind of figured out that works for us on the farm. It's a non-GMO feed, locally milled and produced. So every typically week to 10 days, the pigs move to a new paddock. And you can see the electric fencing that we use to keep them contained and controlled. And a key to electric fencing is to make their first experience memorable. And so what we do to accomplish that is set up a hot wire in the corner of their pen inside the barn so that they can come up to it and interact with it. And if they bust through, they're not getting out and running all over creation. So we train them for about a week in the barn, then they brought out on pasture and go in the electric paddocks there. Wooden gates in between where they move, because pigs are pretty smart. One of my favorite animals on the farm, and they have a mental, the memory on them is pretty quick, and they will not cross where an electric wire was, at least not very easily. So we want physical boundary where we want them to go through. We want mental boundaries, because they can run right through the metal if they wanted to, but we want the physical boundaries where we want them to cross paddock to paddock. There's the regrowth. They really go after that grass and enjoy it. A couple pictures. So that's got what it looks like in many areas after they're done. There's one of our rental farms. You can see the paddocks in the kind of top left. There's a pasture, and then there's a few paddocks. See the succession a little bit going over towards the right, and then they're in the far right paddock. There's the regrowth starting to come back. I would say with good moisture, that was about a week or 2 weeks after pigs were moved out of there. This is about a month later, 5 weeks. So the thing with the pigs is we no longer have the wild buffalo, the bison, elk herds running through, running across this country like we did, however many years ago. And the pigs kind of fill that niche. We can talk about biomimicry. They kind of fill that niche of clearing out the land and of revitalizing what used to be pasture. We have never planted any seed, any grass, any annuals or perennials on these places, but as we cleared them out, cut the trees down, and allowed those pigs to root up that ground, they have exposed that latent seed bank that's been there for maybe hundreds of years. And all that regrowth has started coming back, and some of it are species that are not down below. This is up on the mountain, not down in the valley. Some of it is just different species that, are really new and we're just there waiting to be rediscovered, if you will. Pigs eat some more pasture. All right, pigs in the woods. Acorn, we call them acorn blends. These are multiple acre, 3 to 4 acre paddocks running in the woods. You've got tons and tons of nuts and vegetation and roots and grubs, you know, literally tons of feed material, feedstuffs that you can harvest if you know how to harvest it, and the pigs know how to do that. So what we'll do in the fall, right now we have 2 or 3 groups out doing this. We will put them in these 3 or 4 acre paddocks in the deeper woods with a single strand of electric fencing running through, and they pick up all those acorns and nuts and hickory nuts and black walnuts. I mean, they just take them and crunch them, spit out the hull and eat the seed. It's pretty amazing. And they'll take them and just enjoy, have a hog heaven of a time there. So we see a lot about grass, and we call ourselves grass farmers. You know, we're doing the best to take the sunbeams coming down, that go into the grass, and through photosynthesis, creating biomass on the planet. And so our big goal is, how do we move that process forward as effectively as we can? How do we increase the productivity of sunbeams, turning grass into the biomass? And the way we do that is through cattle. Now, it's kind of interesting to think that of the you have another threesome group, and that is the grasses. We have, if you think about vegetation, you have your grasses, your woody species, shrubs, and trees, or the trees. Of those 3, which would you think would be the most efficient biomass accumulator? And it's kind of counterintuitive. You would think, well, the trees are huge. I mean, you see this massive oak tree, acres of these pine trees. You're looking at 50, 60 years of growth there and accumulation. If we were to pile up an acre's worth of grass over 50 years, just to think about the amount of forage that would create, is a lot more. You can see it's a lot more than the trees produce. So some of the deepest, richest soils in our planet are under prairies, under grasslands. And so we want to mimic how those were created and stop the process of destroying them, like what has happened, all across our country through tillage and overuse and not taking care of them. So how do we push that biomass accumulation to its peak productivity? Well, we do it through the herbivores, the cattle. Grass grows in kind of a S curve, and we say the bottom half is diaper grass. The middle high growth period is teenage grass, and the top, Joel likes to say, is nursing home grass. Well, if we want to keep the grass at its optimal productivity, where do we want that grass plant the majority of the time? As much as we can teenage. And so the way we do that, the way it was done back 150 years ago, the cattle would come by and nip that grass off and be moved on by fire, predators, and the migratory patterns. They would be there and then move on. Well, things have changed. We have personal property and we have fences now. We don't have wolves, and if you start a fire, you might get in trouble. in some areas of the country. So how do we cause that system to take place in a localized area? How do we meet those two with the grass being at its peak productivity and the cows grazing then? And we accomplish that through electric fencing. And so we can control when the grass is grazed, how much it's grazed, how much is left, and a number of those factors. So we put the cows on a certain area for a day, and the way we figure that out, we use an equation. Cow days per acre is what we look at, and a cow day per acre is what one cow will eat in a day. It'd be like a person day for one person day of food. What are you going to eat in one day? A few of us next week on Thursday might eat like a person and a half a day of food. But anyway, we do this cow days per acre, and we give them the allotted amount per the size of the herd, and they move every day to a new paddock about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they have that fresh salad bar, as Joe likes to say, that fresh area, and they're not back on it for 2 to 3 months, maybe 4 or 5 months, depending on our schedule, depending on what we want to do. And the portable electric fencing is something that we couldn't do 100 years ago. We didn't have the electrical chargers and the batteries and the light infrastructure. We can set up a whole farm with this lightweight infrastructure, single-strand electric, and it all fits in the back of a pickup truck. A 200-acre piece of property, and it all fits in a relatively small area. So we have chosen to control the animals and what they eat and how much they eat very strategically with this electric fencing. Moved every day. You can see on the left, they grazed for a day, and Joel's moved them towards the right in this picture. We move the cattle a lot. They get used to that. Rolling up fences, putting out fences. Another shot with the cattle. You can see the forage there. The difference. It's pretty amazing what they can do to it in a day. Now, if you ever wonder what a cow mugshot looked like, I kind of thought that was it. So some people might be thinking, well, that's a lot of work. Moving those fences every day, setting them up, taking them down. Well, we've done the numbers on the productivity, and in our county, in Augusta County in Virginia, the average cow days per acre is 80. So you could have 80 cows on an acre for one day, or one cow for 80 days. But basically, for a year, it's 80 cow days per acre. That's how much forage you're going to get out of that acre. We now average on polyface over 400 cow days per acre because of the rotational grazing, being able to let the forage rest and come back into its full production, full peak of growth. We also do this with how we cut our hay as well. So it's not just done with cattle. The grass will eventually get ahead of the cattle, and that's where we start setting aside fields for mowing, for doing hay, for stockpile in the wintertime. So we don't have any special, that's our hay field, we don't do anything with it in there, but hay. And that's where the cows are all year, you know, we don't put the cows there, so everything moves around. You get multiple uses out of the same acreage. Your you know, gross profits per acre just start to stack up. The more you can layer in there, the more you can multitask, if you will, on the forage. Couple more grass pictures. You can see them moving along. That top left picture, you can, I believe that's snow in the background. At the end of the season, the last grazing that we're doing right now on the farm, some of it's starting to shut down. It's reached its peak maturity. We've had some hard frost, but that forage is as good as, you know, as good as it could be. So instead of putting on hay earlier, we're just having them harvest their own, and all the way through, even though it's not growing. So we do make hay, and in this picture, we're making the big square bales. We find them easier to use in a situation where we have to load up on a flatbed. We load these big bales up, and we'll drive them through the field and just cut them open and kick off the patties of hay as we go through the field. This is on one of our lease farms, lease properties. Load them on the flatbed, stacking them up in stacks. I believe that's yours truly right now, I think, on the tractor. All right. Another picture of cattle moving. So you see, it's just the importance of the growth and rest, and keeping that grass at its peak productivity is just really critical, because what happens is when they're grazed, when you graze the ground, graze the forage off, and it's allowed in a continual grazing system, it's allowed to grow just a little bit. As soon as that cow comes comes back by, he's going to nip it right off, and it's going to weaken it. And when you allow that grass plant to fully express itself, if you will, and then it gets grazed, the grass tends to grow. If you see the top, you have almost a mirror image of root and root structure down below. So when you cut that off, the top is gone, the roots die and add to the carbon in the soil, the nutrients in the soil. So that pulsing creates just the more good bacteria, more life, and more biomass even within the soil. All right. So, last cow picture on the grazing. Oh wow, who put that in there? I think we're doing a little contrast. So we keep our cows out of the water. That is not our cows or our property. As a neighboring farm. So the way we do that is through the water line system we have running on the farms. We have black plastic pipe running along the edges of the field with hookup points, and we put the cattle tanks along the paddocks and move them along that with a full flow valve there. Some of the lines we have buried, and we're able to hook up, and it keeps the water a little bit more frost-free. One of the inventions around the farm is this water wagon, especially when cattle are being fed hay, and we do feed a majority of our cattle. We run about 850 to 900 head throughout the growing season. And in the wintertime, when we amalgamate some of the groups and they're run on one of our rental farms on hay, they drink just a whole lot more water all at once after we feed them. So we wanted to create something that would accommodate that rush of water, that need for water. And so it's about 500 gallons. Those tanks can just flow through 2-inch pipe to those drinker troughs, and they can drink, and then those tanks can slowly fill up from the water system, which otherwise wouldn't be able to keep up with the herd. Shade. It's important to have shade for the cattle, and Joel's dad made this, back up a bit, made the shade structure in the top left corner of an old mobile home chassis, took it and welded it up. It can cover about 80 cows under there if they cram in on a warm day to get some relief from the shade. But the cool thing and kind of the important thing with mobile shades, it's on wheels. Mobile shade structures is we can put it where we want it. And when you have a shade tree or a fence line that the cows are always able to go back to, you start creating a lot of pathogen issues and unhygienic situations where you have your problems coming into play. So we put these portable shade structures on less desirable grasses, sometimes briar patches, things like that. And the cows will just go into there and knock it down for us. It's really lightweight, really simple, and they're about 16 by 32. We can take the nursery shade cloth off. It's like 80% shade cloth from like you see at plant nurseries. We can take that off, pop off the 2x4 rafters, and then just drive it down the road to the next place if we need to. So they're very portable. They seem to be enjoying those. Water. Water is an important part of life, isn't it? And so we have done a lot to capture water, use water. We have ponds up in the mountain that are piped into a waterline system that's gravity fed down into the lower land. And we have like 50 to 60 psi water, like static pressure, when you open the valve. And with no electricity, no pumps, no power. It's a pretty cool setup, and I will say that it's one of our I guess unfair advantages right there where we are. But it's only on Polyface. We lease another 9 or 10 pieces of property, and most of them we have pumps on and cistern systems. And so it's just a real blessing that we have there at the main farm. We do some irrigation. This is a K-line irrigation system that we've been playing around with for the last couple of years. I really enjoyed spearheading it and seeing how it's going to work with our setup. Very flexible. It's these sprinkler heads on a water line that's strung out in the field and can be moved around with a four-wheeler. And here's a picture that kind of shows a joke around the farm sometimes that folks, the neighbors around the place, they say, "Oh, you just get more rain than we do." And the truth is, we get the same rain that everyone else does. We're just able to retain it a little bit better. When the Southlands came to the Shenandoah Valley and bought this farm, their organic matter in the soil was like 1%. Now we average over 8%. And 1% of organic matter can hold 4 gallons of water, or 1 pound of organic matter, can hold 4 pounds of water. So if you can retain more moisture in organic matter, you can see the difference. This is like late summer. This is not irrigated. And then you see the far field with the other cows on there, the neighbor's piece, continual graze operation. So it's just kind of a cool contrast there. We have played around and done some experimenting with some not cover crops, pasture cropping. And that is where you plant annuals with a cedar, no-till cedar, into the pasture just after grazing it. And right before the plants start breaking ground and growing, then you graze it real quick again and kind of subdues the annuals, or the perennials, I'm sorry. And then the annuals take off, and it's a corn, sorghum sudan, cowpea mix. Playing around with that is, I should explain that because that's not normal looking grass. But it was pretty amazing to see the effects. We had like 100 head on a quarter acre a day. And so the biomass accumulation was quite amazing there. You almost lost them there. All right, you can see yesterday's paddock and then where they are today. All right, more dollar bills. Flies. So the manure, the flies, the insect problem. How do we handle that if we're not going to use cow rubs and squirt dewormers and all that on the drenched cattle? Well, if you look at nature, back to the biomimicry, we see herds of birds following herbivores, whether it's the wildebeest on the Serengeti or bison out west. You have these flocks of cowbirds or other kinds of birds following the herds of animals. And what they do is go through and scratch out the larvae that have developed in the cow patties and spread out the patties and going after the fly larvae. And we run them behind the cows about 3 days. That's about the right amount of time for the fly larvae to develop and mature before they fly off. So this is the egg mobile. It houses about 800 chickens in there, and it's kind of an all contained system. The birds range out every day. They can cover about 2 acres. And in the springtime, we have a special way of training them when they first go out. We train them to go back in at night. I bet the first one out that day said, last one out's rotten eggs. So they're really getting out there. Feed storage on the front and a water system. Again, just some really creative ideas for the water system. We have a hose reel on the front, and we use a regular airline hose that hooks up to our water points on the sides of the field. You can hook 4 times as much. You can put 4 times as much water hose on like a regular garden hose reel as you could garden hose. So if you use the small diameter airline, and that's our supply, because the birds don't need the volume; they just need the continual flow into their pan. So it's just kind of a clever way of flipping some things around, and you can put 150 feet on there, bulk feeders there. The nest boxes are inside, so they're protected from predators. We have doors that get closed up. We close them up at night after they've all gone in. So in the morning, we can go out there with the tractor, move them to a new spot down the field, let them all out, and they think that's home sweet home because that's where the feed is, that's where the safety is. So the byproduct of pasture sanitation, we get eggs. And it's a really, really cool setup in where we use them scratching out cow patties. You can see on the top left, they really spread it out. So we don't use a pasture drag. We don't go through and have to manually or use fossil fuel to spread it out with a tractor. A eggs are a big seller, so they're really, really important. But if the only thing the chickens did was pasture sanitation, they, earn their keep, and eggs are just a byproduct. In this setup, we do have, I'll get to some of the chicken stuff. We weigh we sort the eggs, clean them, box them up every day. There's a little bit of contrast. Our hens out there enjoying the manure piles, and another chicken house down the road. He got convicted of foul play, but anyway, kind of surprised there. So this is the feather net system. Now this is for pastured egg production. And here we have about 1,000 layers in electrified netting. And again, this is something that, 50 years ago wasn't out there. And it's really cool how we can take the technology. We're not trying to just go back to the old days of hoop skirts and no washing machines and all that kind of stuff. We're taking today's technology to improve and enhance what's already been created and kind of templated out for us, and to build on it. So we take this lightweight netting, 120 feet, weigh like 12 pounds, and you can lay it out and pick it up in minutes. Use it for many animals. We'll touch on this a little bit later, but this the ducks and the guard goose, Chinese white goose, helps with some predation, thwarting, and they just make a big racket whenever you come around. So it gives me enough to just stay away sometimes. This gets laid out. Here it's being used for the turkeys. So every 3 days, that structure is moved for the pastured egg production. Every 3 days, they're moved to a new spot. We've run cattle on this field. We've cut hay on this field. We've run the eggmobile over this field. So multiple use, multiple ways of going over it and of adding the nutrients and layering. The same battery and charger we use for the cattle. Just a simple 12-volt battery that we can charge up in the shop every couple days. So there they're out. They're getting about a half-acre paddock. The A-frame structure with the nest boxes in the middle. All right, chicken hatching, chicken production. We have one of our contract farmers. That's someone who's growing for us, has created their own business, but is on one of our leased properties and managing a group of our cattle, possibly pigs, raising chickens or turkeys. They're basically under our umbrella, if you will, as far as direct sales and getting a paycheck for producing a product, but they create their own business entity. I'll go into that a little more at the end, but it's a really cool system. Well, this gal, Heather, who runs one of our largest farms, has taken on Joel's dream of the incubating of laying hens. And so we've been doing this for several years now. She was set to do about 3,000 this summer, and has been learning a lot and doing a lot. So we're starting to hatch our own layers, and we do, every time when you hatch chickens like this, you get about 50-50 hens and roosters. So we've been raising the roosters out and feeding them and butchering them for heavy breed like pick off the bone chicken, chicken meat or soups or stock, things like that. They're about 4 weeks old there. Portability. It's a big thing around the farm. We built these portable brooders. They're on mobile home axles. We build a frame, throw up a simple, one-sided, one-roofed, slant structure. Oh, Michael's a guard dog. Gets a lot of attention. One of the other predator deterrents that we have is Michael's a Akbosh Anatolian Shepherd cross that we get from a farmer in Pennsylvania. We have a couple of these dogs, and he's about the best one we have. He can kind of stay on the farm, but I'll hear him chase coyotes or chase black bear or run after raccoons, things like that. He's pretty good, but he loves the people, loves the attention. We have thousands of people on the property every year, so he kind of gets spoiled and looks like a big baby during the daytime, but at night he's working. He's earning his keep there. So what do we do in the wintertime? We've seen a lot of summertime for the poultry. So in the wintertime, they go in these tall tunnels, these hoop houses, on deep bedding, and with the same feed setup and watering setup. And then we have the nest boxes in there. And that deep bedding allows them to scratch and to dig, and they incorporate the manure as they go along. We've even mixed pigs in there. You can do this at a certain time frame in the pig's age. You don't want them getting over 50 pounds. They start thinking chicken tastes pretty good. So only when the pigs are younger, you can mix that up. So you can see we have nest boxes and feeder and water up out of the way so the pigs don't disturb that. Then the summertime, multiple use, garden space. That's my wife, actually, by the way, a couple of years ago when she did the gardens. Tomatoes, peppers, we can get a jump start on a lot of folks growing vegetables in the area. If most of it's for our on-farm consumption, for our own use, but we have sold some. But you can get tomatoes growing a lot earlier in a controlled environment in the hoop houses, and then you can outside, and so we enjoy that. Greens and some good stuff. This is a cool concept. Joel had this idea that the problem was we needed some more pig space for housing pigs in the wintertime when they weren't digging up the bedding pact. And it's like, why do you always get those cool ideas in the shower? I don't know, it just happens sometimes. Well, he was laying in bed one night trying to figure out how we could get pigs to be happy in a hoop house without digging to China. Because they do root up some nice-sized craters, and he came up with this idea of these slabs of cement running down the hoop house with 10-inch gaps in between them. So the gaps were narrow enough the pigs couldn't get in there, yet wide enough to be able to use it for garden space still. And the concrete acts as a heat sink to keep the temperature moderate, and there's a whole bunch of other benefits to it, but it's just a cool idea when you go in there to scoop out all the bedding, because you build it up with a foot or so of wood chips in the wintertime for their comfort. Go in there in the spring to scoop it out and spread it out on the fields. All those slabs of concrete, those cement walkways feel like a smooth surface to a loader bucket, and the tractor tires don't slip in the cracks. So it's really a nifty design there. There's some sweet corn there. So hay in one, hay wagons in the other, multiple use throughout the season. Turkeys. We raise our turkeys for 4 weeks in the brooder, and then they'll go in our field shelters. I think we'll get on turkeys a little bit later. is a racking house. What's a racking house? Well, it's a combination of words. We have rabbits on the side, cages, and chickens on the bottom. So Joe came up with racking. And the idea and the concept behind running the two species together is the rabbits put down so much nitrogen and manure that they can intoxicate themselves basically with the amount of manure that goes down. With the chickens in there, they're able to stir up that manure into the wood chips and also provide, with the two species, kind of pathogen cul-de-sacs and dead ends in which there's certain pathogens that affect the rabbits, certain that affect the chickens. By the symbiotic relationship in the two, no one problem bug, if you will, is able to get out of hand, get out of control. So they work together all winter and keep the smell down, keep the manure, rabbit manure down. Joe's son has been line breeding rabbits since he was 10 years old, with three animals he started out with. And so it's all been inside genetics, and it's really taken off with that. We do sell a lot of rabbit. These are meat rabbits. Sell pretty good, except for one weekend out of the year. And they work pretty well in the racking house. Yeah, they're pretty cute. Giving them some greens. There's rabbits on pasture called the hairpin. So we put them out on pasture after they're a certain age for about a month before they're processed. And we're able to move them every day, and there's a slatted floor which allows the grasses to come up, but the rabbits can't dig out or escape. One thing that you'll notice is we can tuck a lot of these enterprises and a lot of these different animals in little spots, here and there. And it's one of the beauties of being able to do something in a scalable fashion. We don't have a huge, poultry house where it has to be out in the middle of the field. We can stick a little group of chickens here, stick a little group of chickens there, and maximize our land base. Processing some rabbits. Cats get in the action. We think about all our animals. I take care of them. Brooder and the chicks. These are the Cornish cross broilers. We get them as day-old chicks delivered to the farm. They're in the brooder for about 3 weeks, and then put on pasture. The brooder's got deep bedding in it that we add just a little bit of saw shavings. It's not really fine sawdust, but saw shavings from a mill. A little layer every time we put the birds in. Don't scoop it out all season. We stir it up a little bit, just like the anaerobic bedding pack. We kind of stir it up so it keeps the microbes and keeps decomposing a little bit. And milk drinkers along the edge. The young pullets and layers are getting ready to go out. The portable brooders. We raise our turkeys in here, and they're 8 by 10 little chalet huts that are on a hay wagon chassis. So if we need to move it or wanted to put it in a different location, we can do that quite easily. And another brooder shop, portable. Catching the chickens. Use crates and kind of make a little, encircle them in a little corral, and then just start picking them up and loading up the crates to take them out to pasture. All right, these are the broiler shelters. There's another group of three things to remember that, what makes a farm a farm? Well, it's the farmer on the land. And one of the beauties of these shelters is that they're mobile. You can take one of these 10 by 12 shelters, put them on a little vacant lot, put them in your backyard. It doesn't take much to, fund the construction. You just gotta not go to the movies or out to eat for a month, and you're able to build one of these structures and set it up. So if, some person has it on a leased land or needs to move it, just goes on a trailer and drive it down the road. So they're mobile. They're also modular. So like I said, they're not very expensive to build. If you like it, you can retain some of the earnings from a batch of chickens and build another one. If you don't like it, it can be dismantled. And the beauty of this is, like the kind of like the multiple use infrastructure, if you want to grow a chicken for Tyson or Cargill, you've got to put up $300,000, $400,000 to grow one chicken. And that's before you even raise the first bird. For this, about $200, 75 birds to a pen, you're up and running. And you can figure out if you like it or if you don't. The biggest impediment to farming is the land base. Land is one of the biggest costs. But you're able to, put this anywhere, and on top of the land base is the cost of infrastructure, permanent infrastructure. And when it's modular, you can be just as effective with one of these as with 150, which is about what we have right now. If you had told Joel that 30 years ago, he'd thought you were crazy, but that's what we've got going on. So it's mobile, it's modular, scale up, scale down, and then it's management intensive. And some people are like, oh, there it is, there's the catch. Well, it is management intensive, but we really feel at Polyface that there would be thousands and thousands of young people, middle-aged people, thousands of folks that would desire to do this if they knew they could make a living at it. And by putting people on the land, you have a lot more, a way better effectiveness of healing it, of caressing the landscape, as Joel would say, by eyes and ears out there in the field. So they are moved once a day to a new area. You put the dolly, we got this little simple dolly that slides underneath one end, and you got wire handles, and pick it up and pull it to the next spot. Clover. There's where a pen was, and a couple weeks later with a little bit of rain, that's what happens, the nitrogen in that soil just cause those lagoons to just take off. Their water system is a 5-gallon bucket on top of the pen. It gravity feeds to a little bell drinker. The water supply, fill buckets and take them out to the pens. Bunch of action shots here. Start to feed them twice a day as they get a little bit bigger. Here we got some turkey poults. The turkeys are in the brooder for 4 weeks, as opposed to 3. They're a little bit more fragile when they're younger, and we find that under 7 weeks old, the turkeys try to find the most creative way to die, and so you really have to focus on taking care of them. They get some different feed, have different nutritional needs, keep their bedding really clean and fluffed up. And after that, they're kind of bulletproof. So they'll go into those field shelters for 4 weeks after their brooder, time to brooder. Then they go out to this electric netting. So they're ready for slaughter, about 16 weeks old. Again, like I said about the wild turkeys, you know, these domesticated birds love the bugs too, so they go after the crickets and the grubs and all the things they can find there in the pasture. Simple shade structure called the gobbledygook that we put out there. There's a couple different styles. There's another one. Old style water system there. And you see the diversity. We got the chicken pens, we got the turkeys, got the cows in the background, all going over the same ground. And I find it's kind of cool that the amount of space that one of those broiler shelters covers in its lifetime, cycle of the bird, is a perfect amount of nitrogen for that given area of pasture. And it's also, if you were to have a crop of grain, or that same space could grow enough grain for that batch of birds. These are 10 by 12, and they're moved roughly for like 5 weeks, so you can do the math, but that square footage, if you will, is about as much grain as that pen of birds would eat, and it's a proper amount of nitrogen, not too low, not too much for that year's supply on the land. All right, slaughter. We slaughter right on the farm. A kosher or halal killing, slitting the jugular veins. Then they're scalded and plucked. These are turkeys, getting ready for Thanksgiving. It's a family affair on some days. That's a little bit younger. Joel's grandsons, Travis and Andrew. Get the body temperature of the birds down to 40 degrees as quickly as we can after they're processed in the ice water bath. Some finished product. No, I'm sorry, I didn't bring chicken to hand out, but it looks pretty good. Packaging. Old bird there. So the compost, what do we do? You know, in nature, an animal dies, what happens? You know, decomposes, and it rots away. The bugs and insects, you know, take care of it. What do we do with our offal compost? We use carbon again, carbon-centric system, and we have basically a 4 by 12-foot wide area that we spread the offal compost out, and then we layer it with 4 or 5 inches of wood chips, next layer of offal compost goes on, wood chips again, kind of like a lasagna style system. And that mass, as many of you would know, the mass is what produces the decomposition. You know, you can't really have a compost pile that's a foot by a foot square. You need enough mass to get the decomposition happening. So we have that mass build up, and with all the carbon, there's not smell. There's minimal flies if it's covered properly, and in 6 to 8 months, that's ready to spread on the field. All right. I'm running a little later than I thought, I'm sorry. All right, cool. The contract farmers, I'll just go through this real quickly. So we have graduates of our internship and apprenticeship program that are running some of our lease farms. And this guy, several years ago, wanted to get into his own little side business. He was grass-fed dairying and came up with some cool and ingenious ways to do this, a portable parlor. And in Virginia, we were allowed to do a herd share, milk share program where you own part of the animal and you're basically getting your allotment of milk, and so you can't sell raw milk in Virginia legally, and that's one way to work with the system. So you had this portable parlor, and got through doing that. I talked about, putting these pens on leased property or, neighbor's place. Ben here went to the neighbor's place. He came through the program of Polyface and approached a neighbor about starting his own little operation right next door, and was working around the neighbor's cows, just put a little electric fence around the pens, and he was up and running. He did that for 2 seasons, I believe, and then moved on to some other things, but it was really cool how it worked out and set up. He also did some, so chicken pens. He's also doing farrowing and raising piglets for us in the woods. And aren't they cute? And he did his first batch or two in the barn just to watch them, but got them out on pasture, and great little pigs. Dan, you saw him earlier. He was one of our first on-farm chefs. Came back after his intern year. Wanted to see about doing the gardening, horticultural stuff on the farm, and the cooking. So he was the one that did the garden stuff and the cooking, which goes really well together. A bunch of shots of that on here. Vegetables. Hopefully everyone got some dinner and their mouth is not watering too bad. Got shiitake mushrooms. All the little nooks and crevices around the farm. There's nice little spots to tuck things. To play around with mushrooms and doing that. Mulberries. Meals. One of the things about this type of farming is it's people focused. It's relationship focused. And the community that we have on the farm is, one of the very few that I've experienced that just there's a team atmosphere, a team dynamic that's just really empowering, really a really neat system. We eat together Monday through Friday night during the summer season. Monday through Friday night, we have an on-farm cook that cooks for the whole everyone on the farm, and it's a time just to download and relax and check in and plan. It's a really cool setup. gets everyone around the same table. How rare is that these days? We get, the family around the same table, and it's, it's sad, but it's the truth. And my hope and prayer is that as folks learn about alternative ways to do agriculture and produce good, healthy food, that we can get back around the table, and we can get back to community. Yeah, that's a crew. We can put it down. Do some bees. This is Joel's brother, Art. He's a pilot. He flew mission aviation for several years, and now is a mechanic at a local small airport. Loves everything that flies, and enjoys doing the bees. This is Andrew. He has his own little business. Started to do cotton sheep. And he's got a flock now that was about 23 this summer. They'll process a few this fall. Travis does the Khaki Campbell ducks and does a little duck egg business. Joel really feels strongly about getting young people involved early. The 7 to 8, or 7 to 12. He really feels that that's just so important to get them hooked in and involved and interested, at least given the opportunity to see if this is something they want to pursue and follow. And his granddaughter, Lauren, she's the salesman. She's got a little flock of chickens, trying to see if she can get some backyard chicken flock, business going. People buying 2 or 3 at a time. Family is important, even for Sunday now. The policy on our farm, the blue sign is our sign out front, and the welcoming, just interesting that the welcoming atmosphere that we try to have on the farm. We have a 24/7 open door policy. We'll come, walk around, look around. And, our animals have immune systems, and they're healthy, and we're not concerned about bad organisms or bad, things getting on the place. Sales building on the farm, the outbuildings. Our pride and joy is our customers. That really is what drives the farm, drives what we do. As some of you probably know, you don't have a business without customers. You don't have anything to show for your work without the sale. So we are really grateful for the faithful customers we have through our on-farm store, and totally getting out, visiting the animals, seeing things, touching, being a part. Do a lot of tours on the farm, and educational opportunities, showing folks that you don't need perfect looking buildings or the ideal spot on the planet to get going. A couple fancier functions we've done. Want to get the kids involved, get them around the animals, get them exposed to a better view of farming than, mom and dad saying, oh, there's no money in farming, you can't make it. Go get a city job. We're trying to show them that you can make it. And I'll just run tours and run this real quick. Yeah, I apologize. It goes through my watch. Our buying club system, we pack up orders. People have ordered online through the online ordering system. We pack up their orders and they're delivered to a central job location on a scheduled basis. There's Richard, our awesome delivery guy. He's on the road 4 days a week. We join forces with other producers in the area to piggyback on our delivery trucks. So it saves them money and helps load up our trucks. They're not going around half full. From the staff, that's where it's at. It's the community. It's an older shop, Joel and Dano. But it's the multi-generational thing is a critical issue in our day. The young people are leaving agriculture fast, and if we can show them the joy and the pleasure and fulfillment that it can have, I think we can reverse the system. Not everything is perfect. We do have bad days, so I just want you to know that it's not all roses, and we don't have all the answers. We're still learning, still experimenting, still growing. But as you pursue that desire in your heart, that nagging in your heart, take some time. What do you want to accomplish in your life? Where do you want to head? What do you want to be remembered for, or how do you want to make a difference? You'll find that the blessings for doing that will come back in so many ways and fill your life with a lot of joy, and as it has for me, fulfillment. You'll find that surrounding yourself with other people and youthful energy and new ideas, you can go pretty far. As some of the intern housing we have, the cistern system. So my hope and prayer is that you find that pot of gold at the end of your rainbow, whatever that might be, whatever your desire is. Hope that what we've been able to share and communicate here gives you some just broadens your horizon. I thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. I know you could be anywhere else, and coming on a rainy night, really a blessing to be able to share with you all what I'm doing and what we're doing as a community there at Polyface to try to spread the gospel of the redemption and spread the message of redemptive practices in agriculture. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. One thing I appreciate, you can tell his heart's in it. When I hear a preacher, I want to see his heart, so I appreciate that. Eric will be here tomorrow morning. I know if some of you go to your own church, that's your own choice whether you go there or come visit us, whatever. But we're going to have a meet and greet and question time during the Sunday school hour. I'll have some coffee, bagels, etc., etc. And then he'll be sharing his life's testimony in the church service that I'll be involved in. And tonight was redemption in agriculture. Tomorrow morning will be redemption in our culture. So I invite you all to come. Also, there's books to be purchased here. The beautiful woman there will be selling them as a blind wife. And you can go over there and check them out. Good for you, for your reading, your farming, your family reading. Just a reminder, if you live in the area and you got nothing to do on Wednesday night, we're having a pie and praise time. I invite you. It's Thanksgiving. I'm thankful you're here tonight. I'd be thankful to see you walk in. You get free pie and coffee, whatever. And we just fellowship for about an hour or so. And then just the last thing I want to say, Christmas time's on our mind already. It was Halloween. I'm hearing Christmas music. That's our world today. But I'll be doing a Christmas concert with my family here on December 15th. It's a Friday night. Just come and relax and enjoy the sounds of Christ in Christmas. And I'd love to see you. There's no charge or anything like that, no offering. Just come and enjoy. Amen, Rob? So thanks a lot for coming. I want to pray and have you have the Lord's blessing as you leave. So tomorrow morning, if you can come and share with us, that's fine. I'd love it. Father, we thank you for Jesus, who's our giver of eternal life. He's our sustainer and through our life. And he will be our shepherd to take us home free, to be with him forever in heaven if we know him as our Savior. So, Lord, I thank you for what was shared tonight. For a lot of us, like me, not a farmer, I plow in a different field. But nevertheless, it's just things that are just interesting and yet some way over my head. But I pray you'll be beneficial for those who leave here to chew on this. Please get us home safely. Protect these folks, dear folks. And Lord, if they come back to visit, I'd love to see them. So Lord, thank you for all you do for us in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. Don't forget the book table. You can talk to Eric.
I know you guys.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Yeah.
It's all right. Long and interesting. It is interesting. It's interesting. It's just a world you don't know. How are you? Be with you. See you, folks. God bless you. Have a good one. Oh my goodness, Wilbur! How are you, man? I just saw your Aunt Joy painting her rental place there.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll start painting for her.
I actually did a little bit of work in there.
Yeah, right. You're all married with a kid?
Yeah.
I told you
Exactly.
oh, yeah.
You left them at home with my parents.
Was your wife?
Yeah, she's right there.
Wait, look at you. I didn't know it was you he married. Oh my good, welcome back. Hi. Good to see you.
Crazy.
Is that your hands for?
Yeah.
Sure. All right, thanks a lot. Thank you.
How long have you been passing?
Since last September. Something great.
Always appreciate it.
Babe, just try to go to that. It's down the steps. I didn't give him all the calls. Who's that? Give him all the You're right. You are in church. I'll see you.
I got a new life. That's where, this is my brother-in-law.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. I didn't realize it.
Yeah, that's how I met Sean. And we've been going there. Yeah, we're involved in the youth group. Like, our pastor's trying to get a play driven.
Good, very good.
Me and my wife, and then my sister. Youth is actually involved. Karen.
Oh, Aaron.
Yeah, the youth's actually involved there with us too. And Tyler is coming to versus that church.
Yes, sir.
It's good. It's nice to stay in contact.
I know. No, you don't. Unless your Facebook and stuff.
Yeah. The only ones I talk to is like in contact with
I'm on a Saturday.
I saw them at Wings place there.
You can pick up that.
Where were you in the line of
I have two older sisters.
who else?
Okay, guys, 116, second
Yeah.
It's hard, but
Yeah, I bet she's inside. Second one.
It's easy, that's right. I've seen her. Yeah, right. I saw something.
year and
No, you got it just like that. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I know.
But he can't.
first year was the hardest.
Thanks a lot, brother. Yeah, thanks. How's that? What a welcome.
Yeah, all in all,
That's awesome. I've been seeing tons of graduates from way back to just the last 6 months. And they all got married.
it's crazy. Time flies. Where are our wives?
He has a kid now.
He's a boy. Elijah. Jacob
Elijah?
The second.
Is that your? Yeah, you are Elijah. I was thinking we call you Eli.
Everyone calls me Eli.
Yeah, right.
So he's the
Stop
second.
smiling. She never stops smiling.
This one's taken.
Hey, how's your brother? What's he up to? What's he doing? Is he out of school? He's on UPR. How do you spell it? What? A mechanic, you said? I couldn't understand. Of course, I don't understand English, but oh, that's good. That's good. One of my sons teach to ride. It's all good. Yeah, that's good. Can't feel. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
She is, man. It's just now she's being drugged. Pass it for a week.
Yeah, see you later.
Got it, man. See you.
Are you going up tonight or tomorrow? Let's go. No, I said it. Good, how are you?
Why you buy at least 2 beers? And it's a bad mix. I don't think I need 5 pizzas. Should just say 1 piece. 1 piece.
You going up or what? Yeah, she was like.
My family will not be happy. I heard that over back here.
You think so? Your little partner.
There's one thing